I was diagnosed with depression when I was in my dream job. Sometimes living the dream is really just not so dreamy. I was terribly unhappy, but I didn't know who to turn to or where to get help. Instead, I just spent a lot of days being alone and miserable. I really couldn't deal with the shame of admitting my problems. I had so many problems, so many faults, so many struggles, and I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't even want to admit it to myself. I learned the long and hard way that dealing with shame alone is like torture. When you confront that shame, though, it loses its hold on you and you gain your freedom once again. So, like I said, I was living what I would consider my dream job, a job that I had worked 10 years to get. And I was doing exactly what I love to do every single day. I was getting paid to do it. And it was a lot of fun. But I would come home every night and I felt lost and empty and incredibly unhappy. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. My boss at the time used to pull me into his office and say to me, listen, the work that you're doing is really great. It's like some of the best work that I've ever seen. But the thing is that you have a terrible personality. It's like so bad that nobody wants to work with you. Nobody can even stand to be around you. And if you're going to keep your job here, you need to fix that. It was terrifying for me because one, obviously I didn't like being told that I had a terrible personality. And when somebody tells you that, how do you fix your personality? I don't believe you can change your personality. So it was more about he just didn't like me as a person. And the second thing was I couldn't lose that job. I couldn't get fired. I had no savings and I had no place to go if I got fired. That would have been the end of the world for me. So I was just incredibly unhappy. And the longer that I spent working with him, the worse that it got. And eventually one of my friends noticed that I was feeling really, really bad. And she said to me, listen, I have depression and I really think that that's what you have too. And I was like, no, there's no way that I have depression. That's just not a thing. And she's like, well, I really think that you should go and speak to my counselor. Even if you don't have it, I think it would help you just to talk about it. And initially I said no, no, I don't want to do that. But later on, it got so bad that I was like, okay, I'm willing to do whatever. What do you think that I should do? And so I went to talk to the counselor, and the counselor, after a few sessions, said, yes, absolutely, you do have depression. And when she told me that, initially I was like, no, I don't have depression. And I got mad at her. And then I went home and I thought about it for a while and I was like, why would she even say that? What is depression anyway? I don't even know what it is. So I jumped on Google and all of the symptoms of depression come up. And I go down the list and I'm like, yes, I have that. Yes, I have that. Yes, I have that. Like, oh my goodness, I have all of the symptoms of depression. Maybe I do have depression. Wow. Okay. So what do I do now? I didn't really even know what it was. So I'm like, okay, let's figure out what it is and how do you fix it? What's the best way to get through it, to live with it? I wanted to understand all the things about it because I wanted the solution. What I realized as well, as I went through looking for how to fix this problem, I realized that one of the big problems was my job. Not only was I being verbally abused, but I didn't have a purpose there. I wasn't really helping anyone. I was just doing my job, putting in my time. And even though I liked the job, I couldn't stand the people. A few years ago, I was introduced to a podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job that is hosted by a lady named Kathy Heller. She says that the opposite of depression is not happiness, it's purpose. I was blown away when she said that because I absolutely believe that it's true. As someone who lives with major depression, I will always have depression. But in the times in my life where I felt like I had a purpose, I have been so much better, so much healthier, so much happier. So I strongly believe that in order to get out of depression, in order to find happiness, to actually be happy and to start living the life that you really want to live and deserve, you have to start helping people. You have to have that purpose in your life, the reason to get out of bed in the morning, to know that you're making the world a better place. And the best way to do that is to help people. So how do you know what your purpose in life is? How do you know how to help people? Somebody else that I was introduced to, his name is Evan Carmichael. He says that your purpose comes from your pain. So what's the greatest emotional pain that you've ever been through in your life? That's where you find your purpose. Not physical pain, but emotional pain. My greatest emotional pain was being diagnosed with depression. It was living in that place where I was being verbally abused and I had lost all of my self-esteem. I had zero self-love. I didn't even know what it was. And being in that place, I remember that girl and she needed help. She needed somebody to tell her that everything was going to be okay. And she needed somebody to tell her that there are other people out there that were like her, that there are people that have been in that situation and made it through. She needed somebody to understand her, somebody to give her a solution, somebody to say, hey, I've been there and you're going to be okay. The first thing that I did when I was diagnosed with depression was to start asking questions. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to know what was going on. And I realized in that process that I really didn't understand myself. So I started asking questions about that too. Why don't people I love understand me? Am I that complicated? Do I even understand myself? No? Okay. How do I understand myself better? How can I understand other people better? Through that process of wanting to understand myself, I remembered that I had taken a personality test and I went to get that personality test. Thankfully, I still had it. And I started reading about personality types and I learned so much about myself. All of the answers were there. All of the things that I had been told about myself that were wrong for all of these years, I realized they weren't wrong. It was just that people didn't understand me. I operate differently than they do. It's almost like the difference between trying to use a PC computer and a Mac. They're kind of the same, but just enough difference that if you're not used to using a Mac, it can be super frustrating. And if you're used to using a Mac and you don't really use a PC very often, then using a PC can be super frustrating, right? Personality types are like that. You look at people and you're like, they're the same as I am. Maybe they're the same gender. Maybe you grew up in the same neighborhood. Maybe you went to the same school. But you have a little bit of difference in you that can make it super frustrating to deal with somebody or to be around somebody. Whereas if you understood those differences, then it wouldn't be so difficult. It would be a whole lot easier. So many times in life, we think that the key to happiness is getting the things that we don't have, right? I would be a lot happier if I had a bigger house and more money and a nicer car and I didn't have to work, all of these things, right? But it's not really true. The key to happiness isn't in things. Happiness is actually, you actually get happiness when you're helping people, when you have a purpose that you're living and you're fulfilling every single day. That's the only thing that will make you truly happy. So how are you helping people? What's your purpose in life? So you just watched that video and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there.